Ngoma and Jemima had been inseparable since college. They met in their freshman year, bonding over late-night pizza and study sessions. As they grew closer, their friendship deepened, and they became each other's confidants. After graduation, Jemima landed a job at a prestigious marketing firm, while Ngoma pursued a career in freelance writing. Despite their different paths, their friendship remained strong. Jemima often joked that Ngoma was her partner in crime, and Ngoma loved the title. She cherished their friendship above all else, but as Jemima's relationship with John blossomed, Ngoma began to feel a subtle shift. She was happy for her friend, yet a tiny spark of jealousy ignited within her. She pushed it aside, focusing on being the supportive friend she'd always been. One evening, as they sipped wine at Jemima's cozy apartment, Ngoma gazed at the couple with a mix of admiration and unease. Jemima and John's love seemed so effortless, so pure. Ngoma's heart swelled with affection, yet that spark of jealousy flickered brighter. "Guys, I'm so happy for you," Ngoma said, forcing a smile. "You two are meant to be," the Jemima beamed, snuggling closer to John. "Thanks, Ngoma." "We're thrilled." As they chatted, Ngoma's eyes lingered on the couple, her mind whispering a dark thought: "I should be the one in that place." Months passed, and Jemima's relationship with John continued to blossom. Ngoma was the first to know about their engagement, and she played the role of excited friend perfectly. She helped plan the wedding, chose the bridesmaids' dresses, and even offered to be the maid of honor. The day of the wedding arrived, and Ngoma stood beside Jemima, beaming with pride. As they exchanged vows, Ngoma's eyes welled up with tears. She felt a pang in her heart, but quickly brushed it off as sentimental emotion. As the reception began, Ngoma took the microphone to give her maid of honor speech. She spoke of Jemima's kindness, her generosity, and her love for John. But as she looked at the happy couple, a subtle bitterness crept into her voice. "I've known Jemima for years, and I've never seen her happier," Ngoma said, her words laced with a hint of envy. "John, you've stolen our Jemima's heart, and we couldn't be more grateful." The audience applauded, oblivious to the undertones in Ngoma's speech. Jemima and John danced their first dance as husband and wife, surrounded by friends and family. As the night wore on, Ngoma's smile began to falter. She felt like an outsider, watching the couple she had once been so close to. The spark of jealousy had grown into a flame, and Ngoma didn't know how to extinguish it. "I should be the one in that place," she thought again, her heart burning with a dark desire. After the wedding, Ngoma struggled to shake off the feeling of unease. She couldn't bear the thought of Jemima and John's happiness, and her own loneliness seemed to grow. One evening, as they were unpacking boxes in their new home, Jemima turned to Ngoma with a suggestion. "Hey, why don't you move in with us for a bit? We've got a spare room, and it would be great to have you close by." Ngoma's heart skipped a beat. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for. "I'd love to," she exclaimed, trying to sound casual. "I can help with household chores and keep you guys company." John and Jemima exchanged a look, thrilled with the idea. "That would be amazing," John said, smiling. Ngoma's mind raced with possibilities. She could be close to Jemima, manipulate her, and drive a wedge between her and John. The perfect plan was forming in her mind. As she settled into the spare room, Ngoma began to weave her web of deceit. She started by making subtle suggestions, playing on Jemima's insecurities, and fueling her doubts about John. "I'm just looking out for you, Jemima," Ngoma would say, her voice dripping with false concern. "You deserve so much better than someone who doesn't appreciate you." Jemima, oblivious to Ngoma's true intentions, began to confide in her. And Ngoma listened, her heart growing darker with each passing day. Ngoma's words dripped like poison into Jemima's ears, slowly eroding her confidence in John. At first, Jemima dismissed her concerns, but Ngoma's constant whispers began to take root. "Does John really love you, or is he just using you?" Ngoma would ask, her eyes wide with feigned concern. Jemima started to notice little things about John that she had never seen before. The way he left his dirty socks on the floor, the way he forgot to call her during his busy days. Ngoma's words had opened her eyes to these tiny flaws, and Jemima began to wonder if she was truly happy in her marriage. Meanwhile, Ngoma played the role of supportive friend perfectly. She listened to Jemima's doubts. offered words of encouragement, and fueled her insecurities, John, oblivious to the storm brewing, continued to love Jemima with all his heart. But Ngoma's manipulation had created a rift, a tiny crack in the foundation of their relationship. One evening, as they sat down for dinner, Jemima's eyes flashed with anger. "You always forget about me, John," she snapped, her voice trembling. "You never prioritize my needs." John looked taken aback, confused by Jemima's sudden outburst. "What's wrong, Jemima?" "I thought everything was fine." Ngoma watched from the sidelines, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. The seeds of doubt had been sown, and now it was time to reap the harvest. Jemima's outburst became a regular occurrence, and John struggled to understand what was wrong. He tried to reassure her, to make her feel loved and appreciated, but nothing seemed to work. Ngoma watched with satisfaction as the cracks in their relationship deepened. She continued to fuel Jemima's doubts, whispering poisonous words in her ear. "You deserve so much better than someone who doesn't appreciate you," Ngoma would say, her voice dripping with false concern. Jemima began to pull away from John, emotionally and physically. They stopped going on dates, stopped laughing together, and stopped sharing their deepest secrets. John, desperate to save their relationship, turned to Ngoma for advice. "What's wrong with Jemima?" he asked, his eyes pleading for answers. Ngoma's smile was sweet and innocent. "I think Jemima just needs some space, John. She's been feeling overwhelmed lately." But Ngoma knew the truth. She had created this rift, and she was determined to see it through to the end. As the days turned into weeks, Jemima and John's relationship continued to deteriorate. They were like two strangers living in the same house, barely speaking to each other. Ngoma's plan was working perfectly. But she knew she had to be careful. If Jemima discovered her true intentions, everything would fall apart. One evening, John came home from work to find Jemima packing her bags. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice shaking with fear. "I need some space," Jemima replied, her eyes cold and distant. John tried to reason with her, but Jemima was resolute. She left the house, leaving John alone and heartbroken. Ngoma watched from the shadows, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. Her plan had worked perfectly, but as she turned to leave, she saw John's tears. For a moment, she felt a pang of guilt. She had never intended to hurt him so deeply. Shaking off the feeling, Ngoma reminded herself of her ultimate goal, to destroy Jemima's happiness and claim John for herself. As the days turned into weeks, Jemima and John's separation became more permanent. They stopped speaking, stopped seeing each other, and stopped loving each other. Ngoma saw her chance and made her move. She comforted John, listened to his heartbreak, and slowly but surely, she became his rock. Ngoma's plan was unfolding perfectly. She had destroyed Jemima and John's relationship and was now poised to claim John's heart for herself. But as she grew closer to John, Ngoma knew she had to be careful. She couldn't let him discover her true intentions, or everything would fall apart, so she continued to play the role of supportive friend, all the while secretly manipulating John's emotions. "Jemima was never right for you," Ngoma would say, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "You deserve someone who truly loves and appreciates you." John, still reeling from his breakup, was vulnerable to Ngoma's words. He began to see her in a new light, as a potential partner rather than just a friend. Meanwhile, Jemima was struggling to come to terms with the end of her marriage. She felt lost and alone, and Ngoma's constant presence in her life was a painful reminder of what she had lost. But Jemima had no idea that Ngoma was the one who had destroyed her relationship. She thought Ngoma was her friend, her confidant, her rock, and Ngoma intended to keep it that way. Jemima, still reeling from her breakup, began to notice strange occurrences around her. She would find Ngoma's hair clips in her apartment, and Ngoma's favorite book on her nightstand. At first, Jemima dismissed it as mere coincidence, but as the events continued, she started to feel a sense of unease. One day, while cleaning out her closet, Jemima stumbled upon a hidden folder on her computer. It was labeled Ngoma's Secrets, and Jemima's heart raced as she opened it. Inside, she found a trail of emails and messages between Ngoma and John, detailing their secret relationship and Ngoma's plan to destroy Jemima's marriage. Jemima felt like she had been punched in the gut. She couldn't believe her best friend had betrayed her so deeply. With shaking hands, Jemima confronted Ngoma, who tried to deny the evidence. But Jemima saw the guilt in her eyes and knew the truth. "You're a monster," Jemima spat, her voice trembling with rage. Ngoma smirked, her mask finally slipping. "I did what I had to do to get what I wanted," she said, her voice cold and calculating. Jemima knew she had to get away from Ngoma to protect herself from further harm. But as she turned to leave, she realized that Ngoma's web of deceit went far deeper than she had ever imagined. Jemima's world was shattered. She couldn't believe her best friend had manipulated and betrayed her so deeply. She needed answers, and she needed them now. "Tell me everything," Jemima demanded, her voice firm but shaking with emotion. Ngoma sneered, but Jemima saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. "Fine," Ngoma spat. "I'll tell you. But you'll wish you never knew." And with that, Ngoma began to reveal her dark past. She told Jemima about her childhood, about the abuse and neglect she suffered at the hands of her parents. She told Jemima about her obsession with John, and how she had manipulated him into falling in love with her. But most shocking of all, Ngoma revealed that she had been behind a string of mysterious events in Jemima's life. She had been the one who had sabotaged Jemima's job interviews, who had sent her threatening messages, and who had even broken into her apartment. Jemima listened in horror, her mind reeling with the extent of Ngoma's manipulation. She realized that her entire life had been influenced by Ngoma's twisted games, and then, just as Ngoma finished her confession, the doorbell rang. It was John, come to confront Ngoma about her betrayal, but as he entered the room, Jemima saw something that made her blood run cold. John's eyes, once full of love and adoration for her, were now filled with a dark and sinister intent. "Welcome to the family," Ngoma said, her voice dripping with malice. "We've been waiting for you." Jemima's eyes widened in terror as she realized John was in on Ngoma's sinister plot. She felt like she was living in a nightmare, with no escape. Ngoma smiled, clearly enjoying Jemima's distress. "You see, Jemima, John and I have been planning this for months. We're going to take everything from you, your friends, your family, your reputation." John's eyes gleamed with an unsettling intensity. "And then, we'll take your life." Jemima knew she had to act fast. She made a run for the door, but Ngoma and John were too quick. They pinned her down, their grip like a vice. As Jemima struggled, Ngoma began to chant in a low, hypnotic voice. "You will obey us, Jemima. You will do our bidding." Jemima felt her mind fogging, her thoughts growing cloudy. She knew she was in grave danger, but she couldn't resist Ngoma's powers. Just as all hope seemed lost, a loud crash echoed through the room. The door burst open, and a figure rushed in, sending Ngoma and John flying. It was Jemima's long-lost sister, thought to be dead. She had been tracking Ngoma for years, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Get away from my sister," she growled, her eyes blazing with fury. Jemima's sister, Alex, was a force to be reckoned with. She had been tracking Ngoma for years, seeking justice for the pain she had caused their family. With a fierce determination, Alex took down Ngoma and John, using her martial arts skills to overpower them. As they lay helpless on the floor, Alex turned to Jemima. "Are you okay, sis?" she asked, her voice softening. Jemima nodded, still trying to process the events of the past few hours.